movie is another one. Okay? This is what is called epistemology. Epistemology means of knowing something and what it comes out as knowledge. Theory of knowledge. Theory of knowledge of your research is called epistemology. Forget about this complex words from philosophy, but otherwise try to understand the distinction between what you know and what are the means through which you come to know. These two are important for your research as well. What you are bringing out and what are the means through which you are trying to bring out this. Epistemology is basically considered to be theory of knowledge, where the means of acquiring that knowledge. Say for example, you know about the Durandar movie. What are different means through which you acquire that knowledge? One, by watching the movie. Two, by word of mouth. Three could be like, oh, there is a big crowd there, which means it must be a good movie. where basically you are inferring something. You are using your rationality and inference and trying to know something. Okay? One can be through your own perception, I mean, you go there and see. And the second one is you don't go there, but you hear from somebody else. It's called verbal testimony. Third one is basically you see the crowd, a lot of crowd there, and then start imagining that, oh, since there is a lot of crowd, even on the 13th day or 20th day or 50th day, movie must be a good one, right? This is an inference. So that is how there are different means through which you acquire the knowledge. Is this clear? So this whole thing is called epistemology. Epistemology is theory of knowledge, where we look at the means of knowledge that give us the end product, which we call as knowledge, right? So now I was asking about the same thing, like how do you know what you know is important? If you reflect on it, anything in your life, if you reflect on it, then you are in the process of research and you start knowing about what is research. Similarly, another question is, what makes one what makes one answer better than the other? Say for example, I ask the same question to three of you. What makes one answer better than the other answers?
Start critical thinking.
After.
The authentication of sources.
More substantiated rationale. Like it's more all the ties, what has the way all moving ties are like closing, and it's more substantiate, and it is also like rational when these things are nice.
Yeah.
Like how I'm that
Very good.
वीडियो भी स्टार्ट करें
Yeah.
Start critical thinking.
Critical thinking.
By
What else?
adding more information.
Sorry?
contextual knowledge.
Contextual knowledge. What else?
More your own opinion.
Yeah. Consistency. Yeah.
New arguments.
There is new arguments.
Seeing the
Yeah. I know, you know why I am asking all these questions? I mean, why is it that I am asking each one of you to respond? When you say, you reflect on it. Don't give an answer with from here. No? Give an answer from here. So that even when you are doing the research later, you would say that I said this in the meeting. Okay? Now let me see, let me use that and see whether that actually really works for me. Whatever you are saying, if it is not working for you, it's not your knowledge, it's not your expertise. And I assume that each one of you, whatever answers that you have given, is good and actually directly supports your research as well. But you own your answers. As a student, as a researcher, if you don't own your answers, then you are failing in your research. Okay? So think about that. And that's why I asked you to keep a notebook. Keep writing these questions and also give one word. Just write one word related to that so that you can next time revisit and understand whether you're progressing in your research by holding on to or grounding yourself strongly in that. Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought she's asking me when she said excuse me. So what makes one answer better than the other? All these answers are right, but how do you use them in research? Somebody said sources, somebody said critical thinking, somebody said context, yeah, and somebody has said backing with evidences, you know. So all these are true, but you have to put all of them together so that you can think why research requires these. Otherwise, if somebody tells you that, oh, research must have resources, it may not make any sense to you. But now it should start making sense to you. Because if you say that my answer is better answer, you definitely have to give a better sources, better argumentation, better backup, better context, right? I did not teach all this. You have said all that, right? So remember that. Do you think, is that research?
No.
It also does research, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. How many? Yeah.
I think like Google is, if you like Google there one word answer, that is not research, but if you like read what the sources is providing, the PDF or like the sources of different sources, it took this from this derivation and that research also mentioned from that.
Read Dr. Abhinandan's work about Vivekananda. Then you don't stop with Dr. Abhinandan. You go back to Vivekananda. And Vivekananda refers to Upanishads. You don't stop with Vivekananda. You go to Upanishads. So that is how you start going back and trying to trace out where the resources actually, what are the original resources that are being addressed in the work. But here, I only want you to understand that Google, you can write about it. Do you really think Google is research? Or if you think Googling is not researching, why? Yeah, which means you should also understand that your research will not be like that. See, why is it that I am asking this question is important. We say something very interesting in philosophy. No concept is innocent. Every concept is so complex. Though it may look very plain, it's not plain. It's a very complex kind of one. Similar is the case with hello? Okay, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Similar is the case with research as well. For example, I'll give you an example like humor. You know humor, right? When you hear the word humor, the smile automatically comes onto the face, right? But humor is not innocent. Though it gives you pleasure, though it gives you happiness, it's not so innocent. Why? Do you watch Charlie Chaplin movies?
Yes.
Do you watch Tom and Jerry?
Yes.
What happens there? Yeah. Charlie Chaplin would be either hitting someone or somebody else would be hitting him, or he would be falling down, or that's what gives you happiness. And Tom and Jerry, each of them are fighting, that fight gives you happiness. There is a lot of violence involved in creating that happiness, So that is how no concept is innocent. Every concept has to be properly probed into, only then you would understand the intricate things that are happening in that concept. Otherwise, you would completely miss it at the face value, which is a superficial. Same is the case with Googling and research. So I just want you to understand the distinction, and now it is up to you whether you want to go with Googling or research. Now our job is to make you know both and the worth of both. Both have worth. Googling also has worth, but its worth is limited. That's what you have to decide. Okay? Let me move further. Research methodology basically separates opinions that feel right. You say that I feel this is right, from the claims that deserve to be trusted. And the second one, to make claims which ought to be trusted because you have authentic sources, context, argumentation, right? All these aspects that you have mentioned, I did not teach you all that. You have mentioned all that, okay? That's what makes your client to be a trustworthy client, okay? So that's what is research methodology. Research is study of how, now this is a very important, because I'm introducing certain components here, okay? Please note down. Research is study of how questions are properly asked, evidence is responsibly gathered, and conclusions are honestly justified. You know, this has three components which are to be noted. One is questions. What are research questions? That's how when somebody says, I want to do research, first thing that we ask is, what are your research questions? And once you have posed this research question, then those research questions have to have answers, and those answers have to be supported with evidence, and that has to be responsibly done, okay? Because in some of the works on empirical research, we find that evidences are not substantial, you know. That is how evidences are to be responsibly gathered, and that's how you try to come out with the justification which is honest, that leads to conclusion. Keep this in your mind, because I would be talking about these three in the subsequent slides, because we are now transitioning towards what is research, okay? Yeah, this is another important point, that you should know what research is and is not, okay? Say for example, personal belief cannot be research, you know. That is how, even when you write your research article, if you say, I believe, which has nothing to do with research, it has to be justified claim. And Googling cannot be research, systematic inquiry can be research. Opinion cannot be research, but argument with evidence would be research. And information cannot be research, explanation has to be research. And you cannot say, I feel. I can show you, okay? So that's how research progresses from opinion to knowledge, justification, justified claim. What comes out in research is justified claim. Now you have to understand the distinction between opinion and justified claim. This is what I would be showing you in an activity form later on, okay? So that's how research begins, not with answers, but with good questions. So, I mean, just to introduce you some of the types of research, conceptual and empirical research is one distinction that we find, because not all humanities and social sciences subjects encourage empirical research, though empirical research is important. I'm not saying one is more profound and the other one is bad. Both of them are equally important, but some kind of research would involve empirical data analysis, whereas the other kinds of research doesn't involve that, where conceptual research becomes very important. So in that particular context, the laboratory for conceptual research would be the mind, whereas for social science research, the society could be laboratory, and for sciences, fundamental sciences, it could be the laboratory which is important for us. So conceptual one works with ideas, arguments and text. Empirical research works with observations, data and experience. I'm not focusing much on them, because in all of these research kinds, what is important is writing. So I would go to that part, okay? Qualitative and quantitative research is another one that you would find, where meaning versus measurement, depth versus pattern become very important. And there is the third kind of categorization, which is descriptive and explanatory. What is happening from why is it happening becomes very important. Descriptive is what is happening, and explanatory is why is it happening comes into picture, okay? Critical insight that is important to be noted here is Method follows the question, not the other way around. You know, some people say, they begin with the method. Actually, you should begin with the question, and then while identifying or coming to the answers, you choose the method. And some people unfortunately begin with the method and start moving forward, which would be a wrong way of doing things. Anyway. Hello? I don't know when it would work. Yeah, that I want to tell you. Some people ask like, how do I find my research methodology? I would say don't read any of the books. Find the research methodology from your own life experiences. The world around you has a lot of methodological tools which you should actually try to identify. I have identified four of them. I will introduce them to you. There is something called, you see the top one. What is it? Sculptor is sculpturing, right? I call that sculpture's model. What happens in sculpture's model? You bring a mass of stone or whatever material that you want to deal with. Okay, it could be wood or stone, and then you use your tools to chisel out what is not required, and in the process you bring out mesmerizing artifact, right? So that's what happens in a sculpture model. I mean, even in your research, you read a lot, but you don't put everything there. You chisel out what is not required for the thesis, because we say if you read 100 books, you would actually be referring to only 10 books in your research, in your thesis. Okay? Because remaining all the other books work in the background. They are not visible in the text that you are writing. Okay? So that is how you bring all your knowledge and then chisel out what is not required and develop a wonderful structure that would be fascinatingly available to the reader. So that's what happens in sculpture's model. And another model that I found is this side, Potter's model. What happens in Potter's model? You keep adding the clay, and at the same time you keep giving a shape to it. So adding the clay and giving a shape happens simultaneously, and that's how you develop your research. This is another interesting model that you find. This is how I say, you look around, you would find wonderful models in the nature. Okay, or anything that is happening around you. Your kitchen can have models. Your office can have models. Your teaching can have models. Different kind of models of research that can come out. Okay, so you can think about that. Similarly, painting model. What is, when you look at a painting? Sometimes some of the wonderful paintings that when you look at them, you see that it is fascinating. Why is it fascinating? Why is a painting, any painting, very fascinating? We say because it doesn't have even one extra stroke, one extra line, one extra color. Imagine that Mona Lisa's painting that often celebrated has a lot of scars and a lot of other colors that are not required. Then it doesn't look to be beautiful, right? The painting is beautiful only because it has precisely the kind of strokes that it required and the kind of colors that is required and no extra thing that is available. So that's so, even in your research they say no extra sentence, no extra word, no extra material, no extra reference must be there in your research. It has to be precise like that, like a painting, So you should keep these models in your mind so that you really start enjoying them. And there is another interesting model which is called lift irrigation model. Do you know, is there anybody from agricultural family? What is lift irrigation? Some of the models of irrigation are like water is lifted from other domains. So that's what is lift irrigation model. So where you lift everything from everybody's thesis and try to develop it as your thesis, right? This is the worst kind of research that anybody can do. So never resort to such kind of a research which would put you in trouble. When you are doing research, one of the fundamental things is to be honest with your research, ethical with your research, because our generation. I mean, I'm an old guy. Huh. No, I'm not worried about Gen Z. What I'm worried about is, in our generation, you put it on all platforms, which means instantly everybody knows that you have done this work. And if you have copied it from somebody, we have more enemies than friends, you know. So immediately it would be known everywhere. And if you try to become later on and you want to continue your career in academics, when you try to sit on this side as professor, your student would come and show you, you know, this is what you have done. Now can you talk anything? Can you preach morals to me? So your generation has to be very careful because everything that you do is preserved, and everything that we have done is not preserved. So we are safe in a way, but you are not that safe. You have to be more responsible with regard to your actions than us. I mean, now everybody has to be careful, but at that point of time, people don't know. Okay, so that's what makes you to be very careful with this lift irrigation model. Because I'm saying this because there is one professor from some university close to Delhi who has published article which is plagiarized more than 100%. In the sense that, except the name, he just removed the name of the other author. He had put his name there. Not even a word is changed, and he published it in an online journal. And now the case is going on. Probably some action would be taken against such kind of person. So please be careful. Say, okay, now that we have understood the background, now let's move towards research writing. Is this okay? Oh, I already exhausted 40 minutes. But let's see, okay? I'll try to move quickly. But if you think that it's becoming too much, you can stop me. Okay, you have that liberty. Even if your teachers are here, they are not going to say anything. Yeah, they should enjoy, you know. The thing is to understand what are the elements that are involved in research writing. Okay? So what is it that is required? You have to choose a theme. I'm assuming that by now all of you have whatever theme, because I want you to come back to it later on. Write the theme that you have chosen for your research. Now you know. Now you would ask questions like, is theme and topic same? Right? Or what do I mean by theme? Which means, though you are telling everybody that I am doing research, you haven't even started. Uh, it's nothing wrong in that, but I only want you to start now. It's okay if you haven't started so far. Start now, right? If you don't start even now, then it is crap. Okay? Because when I came here, one of your teachers told me that later on, these students will now students do not understand. I mean, attend the lecture, and later on they will blame teachers saying that you haven't taught us. Right? It's an interesting thing. So that's how. At least now you should begin. So you begin by writing what is your theme. You can always change that. You have the freedom because I'm not going to look at it, right? So once you choose the theme, then you have to frame a research question. Because I already established the importance of research question, right? So you have to reach out to a research question. How do you do that? Unless you know the theme, you cannot develop a research question. I'll come to that, okay? And then you have to develop a framework for that research question. Like, what kind of methodology that I want to use, and what kind of limitations exist for my work. This is another important thing, friends. Every research will have limitations. Knowing the limitations is one of the foremost things that is important for your research. Because if you say, oh, I want to work on media, social media. What is social media? Social media is not one. It has a lot of things. Which social media? You would say, oh, I want to work on Instagram. Can you work on Instagram? What in Instagram? What topic in Instagram? Right? So which means you should know the limitations. When you articulate the research question, when you articulate your theme, when you talk about your research, you should also be talking about what you are not doing. It's not enough if you try to say what I'm doing. You should also be saying what I'm not doing. Okay? So that is how framing is very important for us. And then this research, developing the research framework would necessarily involve something called objectives. You should be able to identify certain kind of objectives, because objectives are like framework. If you have seen the picture folder, right? Picture holder will have a framework, and the framework will have yeah. So structure, that's what we are looking at, and that will be decided by your objectives. And then methodology becomes important. I already told you that methodology is one of the, yeah, instruments, tools that you use to push the walls of the known is methodology. Okay? And then I already introduced review of literature, right? Review, unless you are very well grounded in review of literature, your feet are not strong, and that is how you can be easily falling down. Okay? So that's how research methodology, review of literature becomes important. And that is how developing an argument becomes important once you have clarity about all these aspects. Do you understand the story? See, basically I am trying to construct a narrative, so that through that narrative you can remember what I am teaching. Okay, that's what is my narrative. You relate it to your own narrative and develop it further. And when you, and also I would necessarily tell you that whatever I taught you now, you teach to at least 5 people outside the class. Which means you are improving your own narrative of research. That is very important. Okay, don't keep it to yourself. I mean, they say 350 students are supposed to be here, which means there are only, say, 50 people here. You have an opportunity of repeating this at least for 4 times, right? If not 6 times. So you should do that, so that you can strengthen your own narrative of research. So that is how. If you are clear about all these elements, then you already have your synopsis or SOP that we call statement of purpose. Okay, that's already ready if you are clear about these aspects. So let me just take you further. This tertiary sources, right? You know these terms. Credibility can you see in this primary, secondary, and tertiary sources? So, what is it that decides the credibility is who is speaking. Okay, in every field, there are some scholars who have substantially contributed, which you cannot ignore. So you should identify such kind of people, and you should talk about them. Okay. For example, if I am talking about German philosophy, if I don't talk about Immanuel Kant, then I am thrown out. Okay. Similarly, if you are talking about if you research on modern Vedanta, and if you don't talk about Vivekananda, then you are thrown out. I'm saying this because I have been evaluating PhD thesis and MA master's dissertations as well. When they come to me, we say that research begins with bibliography, ends with bibliography. Research begins with bibliography, ends with bibliography. That's how, when you first begin to read about your thesis, read about your theme, you read something, right? What do you do immediately? You write the name of the work that you have read. That's how you begin with bibliography. Okay? In the beginning itself, you start building your bibliography. And at the end, of course, your thesis or dissertation will have bibliography as the end product. As something that comes at the end, right? So research begins with bibliography and ends with bibliography is something that you have to. And that's how, when I get a PhD thesis, first thing is I look at the title, and then I look at the bibliography. Why? If this guy or this person, whoever has done research, did not refer to these authors, then I know it is a substandard one. The person is completely ignorant of the field, and it probably somebody else has generated it. We can easily know. That is how bibliography becomes very important element. That's how we say who is speaking is important. If If you miss the people who are supposed to be referred to in your research, then your research is considered to be substandard. Similarly, on what basis the person you have chosen this particular person has to be clear, okay? And then using what method, and then with what limitations. These are the ones which filter your sources. So you have to note down these, and then when you are reading, you should refer to these elements. Okay. Now I'll get Say for example, I'm giving you an example. Like I told you that there should be a team, research team, and then there should be a research question. So I'm just giving you an example of how do you do that. Okay. Say for example, let's say social media is the theme. Okay. Now, what could be research question? I mean, you should read, but you should also think. What could be the research question for a theme on social media? How?
How it can be like bonus to interpersonal
Ah.
relationship.
How it is ruining the interpersonal relationships.
Yes.
Do you understand? When you come out with some question, write down, and then ask certain other kind of questions which will give you more clarity. Am I already assuming something? If I am assuming something, I can neutralize a research question without putting my own intentions of assumptions into it, is something that would help you to write a better kind of research question. See, it's all like your mind. You just pick up a pen and paper and start working with yourself, and it would be very fascinating. You will enjoy it. You will really enjoy that. Okay. So let's look at this. Sorry, you won't say something. Say, let's assume that your research question is what is social media? Then how do you move forward? See, if I say I want to talk about the whole world, is it possible? Can you talk about the all social media? Because social media appears, see, most of the concepts that you deal with appear to be singular, but they are not singular. They are not singular at all. They are plural, multi-plural. So that's how, unless your research has to be focused, your research cannot be, you cannot handle too many things. You can only handle one. In master's dissertation, we say you cannot even handle one. You can only handle half or quarter of it. So that's how you focus it so much so that you can actually handle it. Otherwise, if it is what is social media, can you handle that? It becomes an impossible one. So never attempt an impossible one. But when do you understand that it is impossible? First you write down the question and then ask, can I do it? How help you to sharpen it, limit it, and reach out to a focused point that you can actually handle. And what would be the research problem? Because for me, once you have the topic, you have to reach out to a question, and on the basis of that, you have to create a problem. So what could be, I mean, even does social media affect attention is also so general. Whose attention? Which social media? What are you talking about? Until now it appeared to be focused, right? Now it's not focused at all. Look at what kind of research problem that you can bring out. Existing studies on attention focus on adults, for example. Adolescents remain understudied in Indian context. So that's what helps you to focus. Even this also is very broad. You ask the same question so that you can make it more narrow. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if you think that you are doing research, identify the topic or theme, and then identify the research question, and then reach out to research problem. It is not that once you have done it, you have reached the conclusion. No. Probably you may have to do it every day, many times, so that finally you come up with one. Training yourself continuously. One of the problems with our generations is, I should finish it in 10 minutes. instant gratification. That's not possible. You have to work hard so that you will have a better gratification than instant gratification. So that is how I would say you should do it 50 times so that you can come up with one. Every day you should do it consistently so that you will be sharpening your own ways of doing it, right? So that's how it should proceed further. So a question is research worthy if it is specific, if it is answerable, and if it is non-obvious. Some people pick up certain kind of things which are very obvious kind of. I would say this is known, right? We all accept that, right? Then why are you doing it? You ask this question to your own research team and topic as well, because most of the time, unfortunately, because they are not properly guided, people pick up certain kind of things which are obvious. It has to be non-obvious. Okay? And then grounded in something observable and arguable. It has to be grounded in something that is observable. Evidences are important. If you don't have evidences, we understood that. I asked you, what qualifies an answer to be a better answer? Evidence. Right? Evidence and argumentation resources, this is what we mentioned. So that is how, if that is the case, then you should know it has to be observable and it has to be arguable. Through argument, you should be able to prove it. Right? So that becomes very important. Of course, I don't want to get into this now. Ethics. Okay. Yeah, but this is an important point. Research ethics is not about rules. It is about intellectual honesty. Okay? You should be honest to your work. Plagiarism is theft. So you don't want somebody to steal something from you. And similarly, you should not be stealing something from somebody else as well. So plagiarism is theft basically. And data manipulation is lying. Okay? So these are very strong symbols of dishonesty. Citation is accountability. It's not that you should not refer to the people. You should refer to the people, but then you should cite, saying that, oh, this is what so and so has said. Okay? So you should give due credit to the person who has already done some work. That is how citation becomes very important. But bad research is worse than no research. Remember that. Okay? No, bad research is worse than no research. If you cannot do research, that's good. But if you do bad research, that's worse because it confuses the existing research and it also damages the reputation of the research itself and your researcher, your credibility as well. That is how bad research is something that is really difficult. I mean, it puts your life into difficulty. Okay? Please be aware of that. So let's try to understand this. Okay? I want you to identify the distinction between opinion and research. Can we do that? Okay? Will you be able to identify the difference between opinion and research? Okay? Let's see. Do you understand the distinction between these three? Opinion, belief, assumption, and researchable claim. Basically our goal is to reach the fourth one. Okay? So we know, as I said, we often say, I believe it may rain. Right? Oh, it may rain. Is there any difference between these two? Think about okay. And then I also have a lot of assumptions with which I talk. But our intention is to go beyond them and reach out to researchable questions. So whenever you write something, you have to you have to analyze it in terms of these four. You have to ask whether it is what you have presented is a kind of opinion or belief or assumption or researchable. Okay. So let's see. Read out the statement to classify if it is opinion or research claim or ambiguous. Okay. What is it?
No. No.
There is no proof? found a class to be boring? Oh, okay.
If I found it, it's just my opinion, not others.
Is it not that sometimes?
Yes.
I don't know. I am also boring now, but at least we do think that way, right? See, we also sat on that. So we know sometimes we do feel that one teacher is very boring. I don't feel like going to the class, right? It happens to all of us. So online, I mean, especially online classes. Do you think online classes are boring?
Yes.
Is it your opinion? Is it your belief? Can it be something that is founded on research? If it has to be founded on some research, how do I articulate it as a research theme, research question? Okay, let's see. If you want to put it in as a research version, then it would be something like what factors contribute to student engagement in online classes among undergrads? Then it becomes research that you want to handle. You know, I mean, I don't want to say that whatever you may have as something that I want to do research is worthless. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the same thing has to be formulated in such a way that it is researchable, it is observable, there is some evidence, and it is arguable as well. If it is not arguable, then you don't land up anywhere. I mean, you should write it down. I mean, see, there is no one final authentic way of doing it. With regard to the same online classes, if there are 50 people here, 50 different versions of research problems can be there. Okay? But you have to basically, once you write it down, you should ask these questions. Is it verifiable? Is it arguable? What kind of evidences can I bring out? You have to go. Okay. I understand. I'm asking question. What will you do if you have this kind of study only before exam? Is it true? Yes. If it is true, then how do you make it a research? Sorry? Yeah. No, remember these three. How do I get the evidence? And what kind of arguments can I develop? Okay, so on the basis of these two, you start focusing it. And other important element is limitations. If it is too wide, then I cannot handle it. I have to make it very focused. Only then I can take it up for the research. So how do I focus it further? These are the three elements that you have to continuously think about. So for example, what are the study patterns that you need students during the research? Okay, so that you can do an empirical study on that, and then see whether most students study only before the exams. Okay, that can be assessed. And then further research, further suggestions, how do we improve the quality of the knowledge of the students and encourage them to study even not just before the exams, even during the course of the teaching, etc. can be developed as the skills. Okay, so that is how. What do you think about this? No? Your principal ma'am is not here. But we'll identify whoever has said no. So, you don't think attendance rules improve discipline? Depends on what? On the teachers? That is how they want everybody to take it seriously. See, don't you think that discipline is important? So, what are different? Come out with one solution. Don't Don't you think so? Because each one would want something or the other from their own side, and which would be convenient to them. So no conclusion can be reached at this point. So that is why don't you think some kind of rule following is important? But anyway, if you want to make it a research problem, research question, is there a relationship between academic policies and classroom participation? Would be a better way to do it. And ask each student their opinion, and then you develop it into a research problem. Okay. Similarly, what do you think about this? How do you make it a research? Sorry? Yeah, at this point it could be opinion or belief, but how do you make it a researchable claim? That's what I'm asking. Okay. So what would be the research version of it?
What needs to be consideration when they get in the hostel life? Or how do these students make themselves independent in their hostel life?
What do you mean by independent? Probably you are assuming something to be independent which I may not think. No? So you have to think further. For example, how does hostel residence influence decision making skills among users? Then on the basis of decision making skills, I'm focusing it on to decision making skills. Independence is focused on to decision making skills, and on the basis of that, probably we can talk about it, but we would say that it is only related to decision making. We are not doing everything. So that is how, you have to identify a theme, you have to identify a research question, and then you have to reach out to your research problem. And this transition is possible if you can make a distinction between opinion and researchable claim. Okay? So how do you do that? I already gave you certain kind of criteria. What kind of evidence is available? Evidence is what kind of evidence can I find? And what kind of argumentation can I develop to substantiate my claim? Okay? So these things become very important for us. I think I have one more slide and then stop. Okay? I'm closing it. Do you agree with this?
Yes.
You agree with that?
I have a neutral stand on that.
You have a neutral stand.
Yes, sir.
Who?
Social media is empowering.
Empowering you. Okay. No. Then we should ask us, how much time do you use social media? In 8 hours? Beyond that? Then? See, your research claim and your own belief are completely different, you know. You say that it is empowering and you don't use it, which means you don't want to empower yourself. Which is a problematic one, you know. Do you understand? Now, what would be the research version of this? What is the relationship between social media usage and academic performance among UG students? This is what we have to ask so that we can come out with certain kind of a questionnaire which would help people to probe into their own lifestyle and use of social media, and then come out with substantial about this. Right? Then it is. It's the same. So how do you handle that? This question is not true in undergrad students. You are research-oriented undergrad students. So your questions have to be much deeper, much rooted, focused than other kind of questions or questions from other people. So research version would be, is there a correlation between daily mobile phone usage and attention levels in the classroom setting? Okay? Then you develop certain kind of questions around this area and elicit information from the students, and that's how you will be able to come out with a research output. Okay? You think so? I told you that this is not yes and no answer. Okay? I don't need your yes and no. How do students evaluate the credibility of online information resources? That's what we are supposed to do. Similarly, AI tools make students lazy. No? How does the use of AI-based tools affect study habits of undergrad students? See, I mean, you can pick up anything from your everyday life, but you have to formulate it in such a way that it becomes a research client. Once it becomes a research client, you are already clear with regard to what kind of methodology I am going to use, and what kind of evidence is available, and how do I rationally justify what I have chosen. Okay, so this is what happens. I suggest that you should write similar kind of questions about these so that it's a kind of exercise. Pick up something from mental health, something from social media, something from education, something from environment. Frame research questions on these themes. That there is still a lot to do. But I thought beginning is very important. As I was emphasizing, you begin today so that your journey moves forward. If you don't even begin now, at the end you will not be able to do anything. Right? So begin with the elementary thing. What is the elementary thing? What kind of research question do I have? What is the theme? What kind of research problem? That's it. If you can do these three things at least, that would be very helpful to you to move further. Okay, then you can reach out to your teachers and ask, okay, now that I have begun, let me know how do I proceed. And I already mentioned there are different elements. One is objectives that you have to identify, methodology that you have to identify, review of literature that you should do, and then argument that I want to develop, you have to think about. And once you are clear about all these aspects, your synopsis or SOP is already ready. Once SOP is ready, you are at least comfortable to move forward towards completion of your research. Okay? So this is what is important to begin as academics.
So one question is regarding the review of literature. So you said that कि हमें ये लिखना चाहिए कि हम agree कर रहे हैं, disagree कर रहे हैं, partially agree कर रहे हैं. जैसे मैंने literature review लिखा तो मैंने authors को वो चीज़ quote करी जो मुझे लगता है कि मेरे theme and paper के क्वेश्चन के according है ना करना. And in the discussion, I think I should write what the things I agree or not.
Yeah, good. This question comes because she has already done it. Okay, that's how I want you to move in the process of research so that you get different kind of questions. Now the questions are related to the basic one, all of you, whatever questions that you have. But she has moved further, that is how she has a second level of question. Where should I talk about all these things within review of literature? Okay, this is an important one. Do you have a related one or a different one?
So I found that one of the when I was there was one dissertation which was but I was relating to, and I actually thought that my paper is continuity of a paper. So can it be? Is it still ethical or is it still if I'm like plagiarizing it? Can it be continuity?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me come to her question and then come back. Okay. I said research. I mean, you should be grounded in the research that is already done well, and that is how review of literature is important. And if you are keeping review of literature as a separate section, then you are supposed to talk about its relevance to your theme and develop it. When you actually write your sections or chapters, that's where people say, okay, what do I write in my section? Okay, so how do I divide it into chapters and each chapter into different sections, and each section, what should it contain? I know what I want to say, I can say it in 5 sentences. That's where engagement with the review of literature becomes important. So if it is a separate section, there you don't say I agree or you disagree. You only say that, oh, this person has said this, but an extension of that has come into picture in this way, and this person has deviated from it and mentioned it this way. So you try to map the whole literature. When you actually write your sections, you say that you refer to somebody whom you have already mentioned in review of literature, and say that so and so has said that quote, and then you explain it, and you say that I agree to some extent, I don't agree to this extent, or I agree with this, but I have something else to add to it. Okay? Or I disagree with it, the reasons are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is how actually your sections become enriched. Okay? Otherwise, whatever you want to say, it would be over in one paragraph. How do you extend it? How do you make it enriched? Enrichment of academic enrichment is by bringing everybody, whoever is related, not everybody, whoever is related to there, and say that, oh, this guy, whatever he said, I may agree to some extent, I may disagree. So this is how you start developing it. Okay? So that's how in the main text, the argumentation, that's where we say, what is your argumentation? Your argumentation process is basically engaging with the other authors and making your disagreements explicit. Okay, that's how we should. And coming to your point, it's not that you should not be extending the existent research. Okay, but in such kind of instances, how much space are you giving to the existent research is important. Your contribution has to be the maximum, and the previous existent knowledge will be only limited. Okay, and then you say that I am extending it further in this way, and that is how each of my chapters and each of my sections get evolved. So that's how you are actually talking about your own work much than referring to the earlier people. Yeah. See, basically, different authors, different scholars have different styles of writing. Some people would write it in a very complicated way. There is nothing wrong in making it simple. Even now, something that is emphasized is simple sentences. They say don't write complex sentences. Still, you stick to simple sentences, and simple sentences will take you a long way. Okay? So that is how don't bother much about the language in the beginning. You write, and then second time, third time when you read your writing, you understand that, oh, this can be rewritten in this way. Okay, so that is how it automatically happens. In the beginning itself, let's not think of writing in the like fully academic way of thing. This is also, I mean, writing in a lucid way is also academic way of thinking. Okay, it's not that you have to actually complicate and dump the vocabulary. In fact, many of the journals now they say you don't dump the vocabulary. Okay. Jargon, I mean. Every discipline has its own jargon, but don't dump too much of jargon. Right? So that is how we have to balance it, and you will get to know once you start writing 2-3 articles, then you get into the mode.
They were talking about it. The result or was it about in the maths?
This is where we have to practice this precis writing, etc. You have to practice it. And also, as I said, I gave the example of painting. What is the crux of it? No extra words, no extra sentences, no extra paragraphs, no extra strokes, no extra colors. So that's where actually second time, third time when you read your work, you automatically understand. Oh, this section doesn't need its its place here, and that is how have you heard about footnotes and notes, etc.? Why are footnotes existent? You have to think about it. When I was doing my PhD, my guide, I used a footnote. He said, you for 1 week, you work on what is a footnote, where should it be used, and then give me a presentation. So it was 1 week work for me to understand what is a footnote. I mean, footnote is it's not irrelevant. It is relevant to the theme that I am doing. It is, I mean, something that I am developing as a paragraph. Within the paragraph, I use certain kind of things, certain sentences, which he says are related but not required there. And such kind of things will go into footnotes. So you have to master this art of different techniques that can be used within the research, which would help you to identify certain kind of portions which are not required in the text, but which are supportive things. So that's how they get into footnote. You know, if you look at some of the papers, they will have half of the page footnotes. Right? So I mean, that doesn't mean that the author is a stupid. Author wants to reach out to the reader in a better way. And how does it happen? By using judiciously the footnotes. So that is how preceding is one method. The second method is putting what is not actually required but related in footnote. So these are all different mechanisms that you use to make your article or thesis compact. Anything else?
So when you be writing something like I did not do it like not engage with the answer, but what I did was that I mentioned what they have mentioned and then how I mentioned it. Was it the right way or was it like should I have engaged more with the answer?
What is our word? Review. Okay, sorry. You know, sometimes some of the short forms that you use, I'm like, I'm an outsider. Sorry, yeah. A review of literature. Now you tell me the question again.
Wait, what can I
So
say?
review of literature,
Everything
what I have used to when I wrote it, it had
in 25
That happens, yeah.
so some
Why do I have to make it in?
I mentioned the paper, let's say I come to one paper on reading or an
So
article on reading regarding it. So I'm mentioning what they have done and the advantage and what they like have done and then what the gaps they have missed.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, this is useful to all of you friends. I said research begins with bibliography, right?
It's not out.
What do I mean
Maybe
by
they were talking about
that?
something, right?
Research begins with annotated bibliography. I'm adding one more term now. Annotated bibliography. Please note down and read about annotated bibliography, which means you write. You don't just write the title of the book and the author and publication details. You also write some more details like what is the main argument, what is it that is related to me, okay, and what is there anything like a specific quotation that I can use it for my research. All these aspects become annotated, part of annotated bibliography. Okay, so this is preliminary reading. Once this is over, once you have taken notes of that, then you revisit and start structuring them. Whether A is against B or A is in the camp of B. Whether C is against A or C has a separate camp of its own. Okay? So this is how you structure them. And once you do this is clear. This is another important point. When you start doing your research, you have to develop something called flowchart of your research. Flowchart of your research will have each of the chapters, and within each of the chapter you will have one more flowchart where you will write who are the authors that I am engaging with, what are the arguments that I am engaging with, and what are the conclusions that I want to reach out to. Once these 3 points are clear with regard to every chapter, you are done. That's how developing a flowchart of the whole thesis, which I call skeleton of your thesis, is important. So, I mean, technically, try to follow each of these methods, then you will know where you are. When you are actually writing, you can always go back to this skeleton flowchart and say, oh, I am here. And this part is what I am developing, but I have to still develop it. And when you look back to your skeleton, you know that, oh, I can relate probably both these points in 2 different chapters. So you will get a lot of clarity with regard to your research once you develop this flowchart and skeleton that I am referring to. Okay, so that's how you will also know, keeping your research review of literature next to you, you will know where to place whom in your chapters. So that's where I'm saying who are the authors that you want to engage with in this particular section, in this particular paragraph. That can also be clarified. I mean, it's not that everything is fixed and static at the same time. It's a dynamic process. You may be changing the places of the authors, you may be changing the places of the arguments as well. But you need to have a framework. Okay, you have to fix it beforehand so that you can change it later on.
So if the paper on published article is already worked out, there is a certain word limit 3,000 minutes. So is it including the references or no?
They specify it.
They are not specified.
If they don't specify, then it is inclusive. In some of the standard journals, they say that excluding bibliography, and some people say excluding bibliography, excluding references and footnotes. Okay, so this is how it happens. I mean, if they don't specify, then in total. Yeah. Anything else? All of you must be hungry, right? Not angry, hungry. you can be angry as well that I'm disturbing you, retaining you.
What is the limit of review literature? Where should we end in our OBR?
Yeah. I mean, this is another important question. With regard to review of literature, what is the limit? Which means, what is the scope? You should be clear about your own research scope. If you are clear about the scope of your research, then you know where do you limit your review of literature. Okay. And the second important element is what kind of argumentation that you are picking up. If that is clear, some more clarity with regard to limitation of your review of literature comes into picture. So these are the ones which would guide us, because nobody can decide anything. You are the one who is going to decide. And what are the tools that you can use to decide that? One is the argumentation. Okay, for example, you say, there are two theoretical perspectives with which I am engaging only. Then on the basis of that, some kind of research, some kind of review of literature gets limited. Okay, and then the scope of my research is only this. Sometimes historical things, they say that, from 19th century to 20th century. Then, your review of literature is getting limited to that. So that is the scope and argumentation. These are the two things that I believe help us in clarifying, limiting our research, review of literature. See, there is no limit as such. Ideally, they say 4 to 5. Because if you are writing, say, a 50-page thesis, you cannot handle more than this. Even if it is a 200 pages thesis, you will only have 4 to 5 research questions. In fact, this is another important point. When you write research questions, there is a technique. Technique is, you should see each one of the questions responses to be your chapters. That is how you should develop. Okay. Even when I sit with my PhD students, I make them write a research question and then make them develop their chapters on the basis of the research question. Sometimes they may deal with 2 research questions in one chapter. That also happens. But you should know that some people write research questions and write chapters and no link at all. Okay, this has nothing to do with this. In the conclusion they would say, I am responding to the research questions. I have responded to the research questions. Whereas in the chapters when you read, they have no relation at all. So that's where the thread has to follow. So the thread is the argument. An argument is the one which links each of the research questions and their answers and their responses. That would be part of objectives. See, when you are writing the objectives.
2 hour हो गए.
Is it?
सर 1 hour का था, 2 hour हो गए, तो मैं कह रहा हूँ अभी stop कर देते हैं.
You have a lot of patience, man. Thanks for that.
Actually, they are more interested in research.